Hello everyone, it's Will Cyphers, and today I'm going to do my persuasive speech on why we should hunt. I am a big avid hunter and fisherman. I was raised up hunting and fishing all my life. My dad to this day still hunts and fish. And while I was being raised this way, our dad explained to me, took the time to explain why we respected the land that we hunted and respected the wildlife that we took off of it. And why we were taking the wildlife, of course, is to feed our families and enjoy the fruits of nature, of course. But also, it's a way of kind of curbing the population control. Over the last 15 years, when I started hunting, say 15 years ago, we were allowed to take 3 deer in the state of Arkansas. Our bag limit was 3 deer. Over the last 15 years, the Game and Fish Commission, AGFC there in Arkansas, wildlife officers have kept up. Every year they do surveys and keep numbers and tracks of what's harvested. And the population of whitetail there in the state of Arkansas, but all over the continental U.S., for referring to the state of Arkansas, has continued to explode and grow just beyond what they could even imagine, even with the hunters harvesting deer every year. And at this point right now, we are allowed to take 6 deer a year. So our bag limit has doubled per hunter in the last 15 years on what we're allowed to take every year. What I've got here, I've got a couple deer that I've taken in the last couple of years in the state there. That's a little 8-point we got there. And this is a 10-point. This deer was taken actually on some property that my dad has, and this is probably a good representation of what supplemental feeding would do. These deer, actually both of these deer, they were taken on this tract of land, were on a tract of land that we actually tilled, disc, went in, put food plots, fertilizer, and extra nutrition and supplemental feeding to aid the population, the overpopulation of deer that we have, along with the acorns and the other natural feed that's there for them. This protein and this supplemental feeding that we put out for them is to help with the deer herd, help them get through the winter because of the overpopulation. According to wirelessdeerfence.com, there are more than 20 million deer in the United States today. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about on the bag limits earlier. 15 years ago, there weren't 10 million deer in the United States. Now you're looking at 20 million deer is what they're saying is the estimated population just in the United States alone. With that explosion of deer, that doesn't mean there's any more acorn trees out there growing, any more blackberry bushes, or any more any type of food that's out there in nature, wild, growing for them. So hunters play a big part, even though they're taking deer off of these food plots. They're playing a big part in actually feeding these deer and providing the extra nutrition they need to get through the harsh winters. Whether it's growing bigger racks with the protein and the supplemental feeds, or actually helping the mothers get through, whether they're carrying the fawn through the winter, they've got that supplemental feed there to actually help them get through the winters and actually produce bigger volumes of milk and better quality of milk once they actually have that fawn in the springtime. So although hunters are taking deer, they're actually giving back more to the cause of the deer themselves and the better health of the herd. So although we're taking deer out of the herd, we're also actually assisting them and helping them get through. If we have a drought or a bad acorn crop that year, there's always that extra feed out there to support this herd that has trouble getting through the winter because there's so many deer and not enough acorns out there. And actually, a good example of that is this year alone in Northeast Ohio, they had a big drought, which has been a drought out, of course, through the total United States. We've been under average on rainfall. But according to www.cleveland.com, in Northeast Ohio, biting insects and plus a very dry summer, they've had an outbreak of a disease that's actually killing off parts of the herd there in Ohio. So this is a perfect example that if we have a bad summer or a very, very harsh winter or dry summer, that our herd is so large that they cannot get by just 1 year without additional without hunters coming in and putting out feed and making water sources or man-made ponds for them to support themselves off of. So hunters play a big role in keeping the deer herd healthy and trying to keep it disease free by harvesting deer every year, taking out older deer, letting the younger deer walk. I mean, hunters don't go out, and you might have the perception that, say, hunters go out and just shoot everything they see. I've this year alone, I would see 20-something deer in the morning and not even pull the trigger. So hunters don't go out and shoot everything they see. It is a management practice with hunters. They go out, they take deer out of the herd that need to be taken. If one is injured, or say it got in a fight during rut and broke a leg, or he got a mangled up neck or something, and it's open wound where disease can get into, that's a very good deer, good candidate to take out of the herd. That's one that you're probably not going to make it through the winter. I mean, he's stressed out. He's got just susceptible to disease and coyotes or whatever that might take him. Another big deal that hunters also help with in the population control is collisions or car accidents and collisions with deer on the highway. That's a big deal. I mean, I'm sure all of you, if you've not been involved or know someone that's been in a collision with a deer on the highway, you've seen it on TV or definitely heard about it. According to adventures.howstuffworks.com, the number of fatal crashes involving deer in the last 15 years has doubled. I mean, fatal crashes has doubled. That's a direct reflection of the population explosion that I was talking about earlier. In the last 15 years, the population has just exploded, 10 to 20 million, which is doubling. The fatal car crashes have has just followed that trend right up the graph there. I mean, it's a terrible thing. I mean, I've had accidents with deer. I've hit deer on multiple occasions in more than one vehicle. I've actually hit deer in the state of Arkansas. So it is a big deal. Insurance companies play big into this. I mean, of course, family and friends, if they're directly affected by this, it can be a bad deal. I mean, 1.5 million vehicles collide with deer every year, causing over $1.1 billion in damage estimated. So, I mean, with hunters out there in the woods, doing their part to actually harvest deer, but at the same time respecting wildlife and making sure they're not taking too many deer, or not taking the right deer or the appropriate deer, letting the younger ones grow up, taking the older deer out of the herd. They do help with this. People think because in the fall that when a lot of the deer accidents happen, it's because the hunters are in the woods and pushing the deer out and pushing them out of their natural habitat. But that's really not true. If you look at it, the rut, which is pretty much mating season for deer, is when you see a lot of the big bucks that come out. They'll be out chasing. I mean, they're in their little homestead, which can be as little to 100 to 200 acres during the summer and spring when they're in their food sources and their bedding. But when it comes to mating season, I mean, the bucks, they'll run right through the side of a vehicle and never even see the headlights if they're chasing a doe or crossing the road because they want to go check out another piece of woods. So I hope my speech today has kind of given you an idea of what hunters do and why we are out there. And although we are harvesting animals, it is for the better of the herd, because they're not going to control or curb their populations on themselves. So it is good to get out there and harvest the animals and help protect the deer from themselves. So hope you enjoyed my speech today and learned a little bit about the whitetail population here in the United States. And y'all have a good evening. Thank you.